So what if an AI economist could do more than just crunch numbers? What if it could actually, read the news, understand what people are thinking, and even listen in on the chatter between other AIs to make smarter calls? Well, a brand new AI framework is doing exactly that. It's moving way beyond just the raw data to understand the language that really drives our world.
To get why this is such a huge deal, we kind of have to take a step back and look at how we, as humans, make our own financial choices. For decades, AI models have been trying to copy our economic behavior, but it turns out they've been missing a really, really key ingredient. I mean, think about it for a second. When you're making a massive decision, let's say buying a house or investing your savings, what do you really look at? You're not just staring at spreadsheets and interest rate charts, right? Exactly. You're looking at two different things. On one hand, yeah, you've got the hard data, the prices, your income, market trends. But on the other hand, you have all the chatter, what you're reading in the news, what the experts are saying, what your friends are telling you, that sort of gut feeling in the air. And for the longest time, economic AI, well, it could only process the data. It was essentially deaf to the entire conversation.
Until now. Researchers have developed a pretty groundbreaking new framework that's designed to give economic AI the one sense it's always been missing: hearing. It's called LAMP, which is short for Language-Augmented Multi-Agent Policy. And yeah, just like the name says, it's the very first framework of its kind that systematically pulls in natural language from news articles, from dialogue, and bakes it right into the AI's decision-making process. You can think of it like this. LAMP basically gives a team of AI agents ears to listen to what's going on in the world and a voice to talk to each other, to strategize, and to coordinate. It completely transforms them from these isolated number crunchers into a real collaborative team. Okay, so how does this thing actually work? The brilliant part is just how simple and intuitive it is. LAMP follows this three-step pipeline: think, speak, and decide. Let's break down how that all fits together. First up, the AI agents think. They pull in all the raw numbers, just like a traditional AI would. But here's the twist. They use a large language model to interpret that data, to actually spot short-term shocks and see long-term trends. And what's even cooler, they have a memory, a pool of past strategies that worked that they can pull from to help figure out what to do now. Next, the agents speak. Based on what they figured out, they write up strategic messages and broadcast them to the whole team. They're reading what their peers are suggesting, they're judging how credible those suggestions are, and then they're updating their own beliefs. And that credibility check is so important. It's based on how accurate other agents have been in the past, which stops the whole system from getting derailed by one loud wrong voice. It's basically a dynamic digital strategy session. And we're not talking about simple chatter here. To give you a feel for how sophisticated this is, here's an actual statement one of the AIs came up with. It's not just saying buy or sell. It's proposing complex, long-term policy ideas. It's thinking about things like economic stability and fairness. And finally, after all of that thinking and all of that talking, the agents decide. This is where it all comes together. The AI fuses the hard numbers, its own private reasoning from the think phase, and all the new insights it got from the group chat into one single optimized economic action. So that fusion is really the crucial point here. It's no longer a choice between just data or just language. LAMP creates a policy that is informed by both, which leads to a much richer, more context-aware decision. Pretty much exactly how the best human experts operate. Now, this all sounds amazing in theory, right? A thinking, talking AI economist. But the million-dollar question is, of course, does it actually work any better? Does listening to all this chatter actually lead to better results? Let's just put it plainly. Does adding this whole language component actually improve the AI's performance in a tough economic simulation? Or is it all just extra noise? Well, the researchers put it to the test. And the answer? Oh, it was a resounding yes. In these simulated economies, LAMP blew past traditional AI that only uses numbers. It got a 63.5% higher cumulative return. That's not a tiny improvement. That is a massive leap forward. And it wasn't just about making more money. This chart here shows the improvement in overall social welfare, which is a measure of well-being for the entire simulated population. You can see LAMP's performance is way, way higher than both traditional AI and the old rule-based systems. It didn't just create a richer economy, it actually created a better one. And on top of all that, its biggest strength might just be its resilience. When the researchers started throwing economic curveballs into the simulation, like a sudden recession or a full-blown crisis, LAMP's performance stayed way more stable and robust than the other models. It could adapt because it actually understood the story behind the crisis, not just the numbers. So look, this is clearly more than just a cool academic experiment. The success of LAMP has some really profound implications for how we might design and manage our economies in the real world. So here's the bottom line. This tech points to a future with more effective economic strategies, guided by both hard data and real-world context. It means we could build more robust policies that don't just work when things are good, but can actually hold up during a crisis. And maybe, just maybe, the most important part of all, because the AI literally writes out its thought process, we get much more transparent models. We can actually read its reasoning and understand why it's making a certain recommendation, which tackles that whole black box problem head-on. And all of this leaves us with one last kind of fascinating question to think about. For centuries, economics has been a story told through numbers, charts, and equations. But what happens to that story when our models finally learn to understand our words, too?